is community, and I think it's church. You know, we're all, you know, I remember even as a little boy growing up and going to church, and the minister saying things about gay people and you're going to hell, and it seemed to me even at that age I knew that it was wrong, and I felt wrong. And so if that's constantly being reinforced, you feel like you need to try and be normal. And I think for a lot of people, being normal means being straight. And so you end up in a situation like Ondrea ended up in, where the man is trying to be straight to please everybody else, and ultimately just ruining people's lives.
Well, it's just amazing how common that is, too. And you find yourself wondering, I mean, I think society plays such a huge role, and I think society has to take a really big responsibility for these gay men choosing to do this. And I went back and forth on whether, I mean, I wanted to believe that Marseilles was not like this bad person. You know, that I really wanted to believe that he really loved her. I mean, you know, I figured, I mean, you know, they were intimate, and you know, he wanted to be intimate, and you know, I'm thinking he really cares about her.
And that's how I felt.
Right.
Ondrea, we've had this discussion, I think feels differently, but I think he honestly loved her the way that he knew how. It may not have been the way she wanted to be loved, but I think he loved her.
With that monkey on his back, because he was confused, and society is telling him that, you know, you're supposed to be this way, and you're supposed to have a wife, and you're supposed to have the kids and the picket fence and go to work and provide. But on the flip side, he's got these feelings he has to deal with, and I found myself wondering, like, where does he go? Where does he go? Who does he run to? And if you can't go to church, my thing is, if you can't go to church, and God accepts you, and the people accept you in church, where are you going? So I kind of got that. Ondrea, were there signs of Marseilles being gay before you all got married, like through the dating stage? And if so, what were they?
Well, I think one of the most common signs that readers may look for is the fact that he was feminine. I cannot say that he was feminine. He was not as masculine as the normal man, but at the same time, having grown up in church all of my life, there are plenty of men in church who are not hood. You know, they're not pimping down the street. So it was not the norm for me to really have, you know, a bunch of pimping men. And I'm like, oh, I want one of those because he's so masculine. You know, so it was not an issue for me in terms of, you know, the fact that he wasn't a pimper. So I was willing, you know, I'm not going to judge you because you're not this or you're not that. So I gave the benefit of the doubt. We did have discussions, you know, about different things because, you know, he felt people thought he was homosexual. So those issues were addressed.
Right. So you did address that.
Exactly.
Because I'm thinking when you say, you know, feminine, you know, I mean, you know, I've seen men who are very particular about their clothes, and they have to be, you know, is that feminine or is that gay tendency? Not necessarily.
Exactly.
And then you see the guys that are just flaming.
Exactly.
Now that, I mean, come on now. I mean, you marry that?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, because then what are you going to get?
Exactly.
You know. So I was just kind of curious about that. Like, what kind of signs was he putting out there for you?
Well, I think most of the signs that I saw were mostly to alarm me of conceit.
Okay, so he was into himself.
Right.
You know, he just
very into himself.
Common.
But at the same time, he was into me. So that was the tricky part.
Okay,
right
I see.
So
that.
Exactly, he was into me as well. So,
but into himself too.
Exactly, very into himself.
Yeah. Okay, I get that.
You know, there were no, oh my gosh, he's gay, you know, type of signs.
Like no aha moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get that. I get that. So now, here we are. You know, here we are, and you've gone through this, you know, gone the distance and gone through some things. You know, are you still angry?
I would not really call it angry. Sometimes I can get angry, being as though the situation continues. So it rehashes old feelings on, you know, on top of some new stuff. But I have really prayed and asked God to help me, because I don't want to be angry. I don't want to bring my children up in an angry environment.
Right.
So I really, you know, have focused on, I don't speak negative, you know, about him to the children. I don't try to focus on that. I think a lot of the feelings that I had suppressed, just trying to get through, just trying to maintain, trying not to go off, you know, and be a good mom to my kids, those issues were suppressed. So in writing this book, I went through a whole emotional process.
Yeah. Therapeutic?
You know, where it was
A little therapeutic, because I don't know if you ever get over that.
Well, the issue does not go away just because I wrote the book.
Exactly right.
So it still remains and it still continues today. But it was very therapeutic because that was how I coped. I just shut it off, and I did not have an emotional reaction to it because I just had to get through it.
Right.
So this really helped me to deal with all the emotional aspects of that, because I don't want to carry it forward.
No, you don't. And then I was thinking also, and I'm going off the page just for a minute, because I think this will help some people, because I often think that, okay, you stayed, one of the big reasons why you stayed was because of the church,
right,
and all of that. Do you think that they felt that the church failed you, or God failed you at all?
I would never
throughout
say
this process.
I would never say that God failed me. I can't blame anybody but myself in terms of the decision I made to say yes and to marry him. I completely take ownership of that. I do think there are issues in the church on how to deal with homosexuality.
Right. I agree.
You know, and you know, I'm not going to sit here and say, because I've been in church all my life and I'm saved, and you know that church is perfect, because it's not. And everybody knows
people
that.
in church.
Everybody, exactly. And everybody, there are different types of people in church. We make up the church, and so, you know, you're going to have different issues. So I do think the church needs to discuss this issue,
most definitely,
so that we can facilitate an environment to help people. If it's to help some young men to make the decision not to marry a woman until you get your issues resolved, or it's a situation where we help the young ladies to open your eyes and pay attention before you just fall so madly in love that you don't pay attention to stuff. And also to help families, you know, raising our children in or out of church, we kind of mold the children a certain way. We can mold the children a certain way. So we don't want to mold children to be pressured by different things.
Oh, sure.
But at the same time, you know, you want them to be able to grow up and make their own decisions and make positive decisions that will not, you know, cause catastrophe in someone else's life.
That's so true. That's so true. Jason, as the reader, I would have loved to know more about the good times that Ondrea and Marcia's had, because I mean they were few and far between, and you know, in helping us to understand, you know, why she stayed, because we always hang on. I mean, everybody loves the beginning of a relationship. The beginning, oh, it's like flowers every day, and I love you, and you know, can't wait to see you, and the heart's going pitter pat, and all of that. You know, everybody loves that, and so we didn't get a lot of that throughout the book. And so what I was curious about, is there a reason why you chose to leave that out? Because reading through it, I would have been like, oh, okay, so they, you know, at the beginning he spoiled her, he did. We had some, but we just didn't have enough to make us feel like, oh, well, we get it, you know, because they had that connection. We didn't feel that real connection through reading.
I think it was a conscious decision, in the sense that we wanted to start at a certain point, and that point was her wedding.
Right.
So you missed the courtship, and honestly, looking back, I don't think that as the writer or as the reader, that it made much of a difference in terms of why she stayed. Knowing the reason why she stayed, I know that it doesn't make a difference. And I think once the reader reads the book, they'll realize that the fact that he courted her, that he was charismatic, that he was charming, meant nothing.
Right.
You know, so I don't think it factored into the length of time that she stayed, other than the fact that she loved him.
Right. And that came through really, really well.